presentation, we'll be looking at fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and how coping with behavior challenges for youth with FASD can be challenging for both the family and the child experiencing the disability. After listening to the podcast, we identified 3 key takeaways. Firstly, the impact. The impact of FASD on youth are profound. As well, youth with FASD often lack support from their community as there are significant misunderstandings surrounding FASD. Secondly, the experiences. As explained through experiences, FASD affects the many ways in which a person may have a particular behavior towards certain situations or stimuli. Lastly, support. There are nearly no programs or support for children with FASD. As well, children with FASD were not permitted to partake in certain programs as it was not recognized as a disability.
Now moving on to compelling components. Something we found moving was the fact that if children with FASD can get the right support early on, they are able to be more successful. So if a child is able to get this correct support, they are able to do much better as adults. Children may be forced to do things they outright cannot comprehend, and when they are not able to do it, people, such as teachers, would view it as these children having a bad attitude. In reality, these children just have delayed development. Even their social development would be affected, and it often leaves kids feeling lonely and being pressured to do things that were not appropriate just to gain friends because they are socially delayed. It is surprising that police and doctors do not want to help or make suggestions that could help simply due to the misunderstanding of FASD. Now, what surprised us about FASD within youth? There are so many things that we need to manage, and it is surprising that time after time, authorities and healthcare professionals can see this behavior and not speak to it or suggest anything for the parents. In this case, with Lori and Richie, he was seen in the system, but not recommended for any care or support. This is seen within many cases of undiagnosed children getting into trouble with the law or even within their own school, because people tend to overlook the behavior and assume that they are just being defiant. Children with FASD have trouble regulating behaviors and applying the things they know to day-to-day life, but people see this as intentional or as they are just trying to be difficult. Connecting with our own experiences. There is a huge stigma that we need to overcome. It is tough for parents to admit that they may have done something wrong to affect their children in a negative way. This makes them feel helpless and guilty that they have done something wrong and therefore don't need the help. We essentially need to move away from blame and address the real issue rather than protecting our pride. Rethinking our biases. This just makes us more aware of situations going on and focuses us to think of the fact that there are many children suffering with developmental disabilities that are being overlooked and made out to seem as if they are not capable of doing everyday things. It makes you think how it is important to never assume anything with children and youth, and sometimes we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because at the end of the day, some children do not always have bad intentions. They just do not know or understand how to let their emotions out. Some children just need more understanding or instructions, and we need to be able to adapt the environment for children so they can be successful. We will now be answering question 3 based on Richie's situation. One challenging behavior that may be experienced is delayed social development. This behavior may look like poor problem solving in social environments, a lack of understanding of social cues, and not being able to recognize other people's perspectives. These behaviors come as a result of FASD, which can lead to various developmental delays. Specifically, this delay could cause a child to act inappropriately without realizing they may be doing something wrong. These behaviors in schools should make teachers consider where their students are at and be mindful of FASD and young children, along with other developmental delays, so to not place blame or make the child feel guilty. These symptoms and delay factors caused by FASD are very real and affecting many children and youth, and there are still unfortunately several stigmas associated with FASD. Many people do not even realize or recognize this as a disorder. This creates a lack of resources for children and families faced with FASD and many hardships that come along with it, and with minimal support, representation, and resources, sleep issues, and inappropriate sexual behaviors, just to name a few.
So, moving on to ideas and recommendations, there are several ways that we can help children with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and their families as well, on multiple aspects. So, looking at the example of Richie, we can see that children and youth with FASD may have a hard time interacting with their peers, often shy away from social groupings and things like this. So, one idea to help these children may be to teach social skills as part of the curriculum and integrate that into the classroom as a way of helping children socially develop through nature and just through time. And the second point just kind of goes over why it's important and how teachers have such a big impact on their students and on children. So maybe in the classroom kind of situation, teachers can make sure that they understand their children as individuals so that they can treat them as individuals when it comes to schooling and socially interacting and understanding that they have FASD. So since children with FASD have a hard time with social interaction and social norms and things like that, it would be a good idea to create maybe like a rules list and include them in that rules list. So maybe ask them and give them prompts to lead you to an answer of norms that you could put as expectations for the class or for the group of children that you're working with. In this way, they can look at it or you can refer to it whenever you're teaching or being a leader, and this will help them. And finally, a resource that was mentioned in class is a great example of something that could be helpful for family or parents or guardians that are working with these children with FASD. So the example is the project Good Buddies. So it's basically a course in FASD that parents and guardians can complete to understand it a bit better. And once they understand it better, they're able to provide better for their child or whoever, and they're able to help their children overcome the symptoms of FASD.